Looks like the stream of arrivals has slowed somewhat, so I think probably this is a good time to start. It's also 7:01, which is another good time to start. And I want to welcome you all on behalf of St. Brendan's Episcopal Church in Franklin Park to this, our 13th in a series of public forums. My name is Tim Austin, and I'm the Senior Warden of St. Brendan's, at least for the next 3 weeks. St. Brendan's began organizing these forums back in the summer of 2020 as a response to the death of George Floyd, and indeed the deaths of many other Black women and men, both before and since. Since then, we've addressed a number of important topics, ranging from reintegrating offenders as they return to society, to ways to combat racism in our education system. In today's forum, we plan to extend the work we've done in prior webinars by providing information that some of our online audiences may not know about Native American culture, traditions, and spirituality, by learning more about what we can all do to ensure that our Native American neighbors are treated fairly and justly, and by reminding ourselves why this is something that Jesus would want us to do in fulfilling the baptismal covenants that we enter into as Episcopalians or as Christians. It's my pleasure to welcome our guest for this evening's session, Mike Sims, a member of the Upper Cumberland Cherokee and Seminole tribes. Mike is an active member of the Council of Three Rivers American Indian Center in Indiana Township, and for a dozen or so years, he's coordinated their very successful Pittsburgh area powwow, in addition to running the center's Speakers Bureau. So our format for this forum differs a little from the one that you may have got used to from earlier forums. Mike is not going to make a presentation to kick off. Instead, we will start right in with questions, following the general structure suggested by our title, Native Americans Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. I have a few questions, I'll be honest, plant questions with which to get us started, but we are very keen to tailor our forum to what interests, puzzles, or concerns you. To send in a question for Mike, simply use the chat tab on your screen. Sean Sweeney, who is handling technology for this forum, will be working with me to receive and organize your questions as they come in. In some cases, we may combine questions or rephrase them a bit, so please bear with us if you don't hear your question asked in quite the way you submitted it. Okay, so let's get started. Mike, I don't want to focus too long on history because our main goal is to understand how we can best be useful in supporting Native Americans today. But we can't ignore the fact that where we are now is the result of many actions, many of them shameful actions in the past. So let's start there, if we may. So I read in an interview that you gave to Trib Live 6 months ago that there are 105 tribal backgrounds currently represented in the Council of Three Rivers American Indian Center. But what do we know about the people who were actually living here in Southwest Pennsylvania when European settlers first arrived? Who were those Native Americans?
So the people that lived here when settlers moved in was a combined of the Iroquois, which is the Iroquois Confederacy. They're made up of 6 different tribes, and they're more located towards the New York area, but also in this area was the Lenni Lenape. They're more, now you can find their tribe and their homelands in the Delaware, New Jersey region. They're still a very active tribe. They have a lot of tribe members, and they still hold their ceremonies, and they have their council fires, and they're still a very active tribe. That's a non-federally recognized tribe at this point. That's a big thing of the past. Well, a big thing we're shooting to fix of the past is federal and state recognized tribes. There's a gap. You know, there's all these tribes that have existed and have been here and still exist, but because they're not recognized by the federal government, they don't exist to the government, and they don't matter. So those tribes don't get the benefits from the government. You know, if it's federal funding to help the tribe itself, to its members obtaining
Uh, I'm not hearing you at the moment, Mike.
You hear me now?
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, good.
So I wasn't sure where I cut out. The feathers, we all hold our feathers, but legally, if you're not a federally recognized Indian, then you can't legally hold those feathers. You can technically go to jail and be fined to hold those feathers. So that's a lot of our past that we're working on. And the Lenni Lenape they were from this region, and they're only state recognized, and they're fighting to be federally recognized because they have the members, they have the blood quantum. So that's a fight that them as a tribe is currently dealing with and fighting.
So tell me a little bit more about how some tribes are recognized and some are not. How did that come to be?
So the federal government combined tribes. They thought that they could just rehome and combine people when they put them on reservations. So when they did that, in theory, they were trying to wipe out tribes, but that wasn't always the case. They still had their own identity within that tribe, and they still kept their traditions alive, which makes them still exist today. But the government doesn't see it that way. They said, nope, we took this tribe and we took this tribe and we put them together. So that's how tribes lost their identity and still to this day fight for their identity. Another big state recognized tribe is the Lumbee. They're out of North Carolina. They're not federally recognized. They're only state recognized. So, they've lost their identity with the government, but they're still a very active and existing tribe at this point today.
Okay, good, excellent. So I think we all know from our American history lessons that the United States was constructed literally on land that had been seized or quote, purchased, but it wasn't really purchased, from Native American peoples. In what ways does that history of betrayal continue to color the way that Native Americans view the country and the people that live around them?
So, excuse me. What the government did is they basically pushed us to where they wanted us to live, and they took our land. And they still attempt to do that today. Just look at the Dakota pipeline and the battle that they fought to have that pipeline rerouted around the waterway for the reservation. The government still thinks they're this powerful and they can just do whatever they want and just push us around, where we didn't know anything when settlers first came and the government first was evolved and they moved us to reservations, because they made it seem like we're going to give you this nice piece of land, we're going to take care of you. But we all know that that is not the case. So now we stand our ground and we stand up for ourselves and we stand up for our own rights. We've protested. We held the longest walk, and we held the longest walk too. Like we make a statement now. We're no longer being pushed around. So we fight, and there was a point where our identity was gone. Well, they tried to make it gone altogether, where they banded our powwows and our ceremonies, and we couldn't practice that stuff. So we fought for all that back, and we have that, and we can continue to fight and not be the pushovers we once were.
Very good. I was reading in preparation for tonight. I was reading the story of the Kinswa Dam episode, which struck me partly because it's so local. I mean, it's right up the river from Pittsburgh, and it's also something that is fairly recent, back in the days of John F. Kennedy.
Correct. That goes back to it's the government. They think they can take and push whatever they want. Like it's a very hurtful thing to us that they do that, and not to sway away from that, but even more local, there's burial grounds in McKees Rocks. They tried to dig up and move those burial grounds within the last 20 years or so, and because it was in their way of a project they wanted to do. But that was a historic landmark, and they wanted to just get rid of it. And we fought, we protested, we did all of that. That's something you can't just, it's a historic landmark. Those are our burial grounds. Like, you can't just, oh, how about if I just come to your parents' cemetery and dig up your grave and put them wherever I want? It's the same thing, and it's not all right. So we fight for that. We, in Pittsburgh in 2019, we held a water ceremony at the point where the three rivers come together. We held that ceremony here. We had Indians come from all over, from Ohio, from New York, from Maryland. We held that ceremony, invited all them people here and held that ceremony because those waterways, those are our sacred waterways. Without water, there is no life. So, we did that, and we did that as a ceremony, but also as almost like a protest, saying these are our waterways. This is our land. You can't just do as you please.
Very good. Just one more question about history here. How well are we doing, both locally and more broadly, in having our museums and our educational system teach accurately about what has happened to Native American peoples?
So, on the museum front, museums do a very good job at restoring artifacts and having different artifacts from different periods of time from Native American history. The Carnegie Museum of Natural History here in Pittsburgh worked with our Indian Center when they built the Alcoa exhibit in 97. Like, they worked together to build that. And in 97, from 97 to 2002, the museum actually hosted a powwow every May at their site as a representation of all that work that was put into that exhibit. So that exhibit was very carefully thought from. It also goes from the past all the way to the future. As you're exiting the exhibit, it goes into where they're building a building and there's a worker up on top and he's working on a steel beam. So it brings it full circle. As for history class, they're nowhere close. They teach history on what they want you to know and what they want you to believe. So they don't even touch really on Native American history in school. It's more American history that they're focused on. And, they filter a little bit of the American Indian side into that because it intertwines, but there is no broad focus on Native American history within our education system.
I've got a follow-up question here. This is not quite the history, it's more the current state of affairs, but I think this was one that you'll really want to talk about because I know that you and I talked about it while we were having our preparatory meeting. So the question is, it comes from Claire, and it says, do you have your own schools? And she means, do Native Americans have their own schools? And if so, are they receiving educational funding?
So, our reservations, depending on the reservation and the size of the reservation, has its own schools that are built for Native American children to attend that live on the reservation. That way they don't have to leave the reservation to attend the school. And those schools do receive state and federal funding just like any other public school. But other than that, no. There is not a Native American school everywhere or anywhere for Indian people to attend. So it's more secluded to reservation kids, and only if that reservation has a school. A lot of reservations are more just a couple housing plans or a couple trailer parks. Some of the bigger reservations, they have casinos and other big enterprises on them that make the tribe a lot of money, which helps support the tribe. And those are the reservations you would find a school on, but not all Indian kids have access to that.
Would you like to talk a little bit about the Head Start program at the Indian Center?
Absolutely. So when our Indian Center in the late 70s, early 80s, we got funding for a Head Start program to help Indian kids of our members. So, everyone had young kids at that point. So like we got Head Start funding and we started a Head Start program to give those kids a place to be, a school structure that was funded without breaking the bank. Well, since then, we still have a Head Start program. We now have 5 sites throughout Pittsburgh and over 140 employees. And our Head Start program is no longer just for Native kids or Indian kids. It is open to the general public as a normal Head Start facility. And we did that so it gave kids of all backgrounds the chance for a structured education at an early age. We all know that private preschools, they cost big money, and a lot of people can't afford to send their kid to a private preschool. So the Head Start program is a great way for young kids to get education and have a structured life. They go from teaching basic skills to also like they sit at lunch. Oh, prior to COVID, they sit for lunch, like they sit around the table and they pass the bowl and they make their own plate. So they have like that family style sitting where they're learning that as well. So it helps their home structure, helps their normal life structure. So we, as the Indian Center, we opened it to everybody to give everybody that opportunity to have that for their kids.
Fabulous, fabulous. So we've already moved on from the past to the present. So now just stay where since we've moved, we'll stay there. So I think at this point, it would be nice to know a little bit more about the Native American community in Pittsburgh and around Pittsburgh. What kind of community life do Native Americans have here? And what are some of the challenges that you're facing?
So our community is not as active as it once was as a community whole. There's a lot of individuals that are still very active and do a lot of things, but as a community whole, the generation that started and founded all of this have started to pass on, and not all of their kids have carried the torch behind their parents or their grandparents. So there's links missing, but we still exist. We still work together. Our Indian Center, we still hold our community days once a month. The chance for us to get together and work on craft work, work socializing. We bring the drum, we sit and sing some songs. Thanksgiving time, we don't call it Thanksgiving, but we have a potluck dinner on a Saturday. It's more lunch, but we all come, everyone brings a dish, and we sit there and we gather and we have a feast together. So these are different activities that we do to keep our members involved and keep them active within our Indian Center. We don't want to ever see the Indian Center go away, but without a community supporting it, it would eventually go away. But there's enough of us that push and do things and take sacrifices to make it still happen. Go ahead.
I know that music and dance are a very important part of Native American life. Is that one of the things you focus on at the center?
So at our community days, the goal behind them is to share our culture and teach our culture to our youth. If it is from the people that know some parts of the language, if they can mix with people of the same tribe to teach language, if it's to teach sewing and outfit making so the younger generation can start making their outfits and learn to dance and get out there and dance. That's there's a lot more to our lives than powwowing and dancing. But from the outside looking in, a lot of people see the powwow front and see our dancing and see our singing. So like when they think Native American, if they're thinking current date, they're thinking powwow. Mm-hmm. And so we absolutely teach that to our youth, but we also teach, our ceremonies. We teach our sweat lodges and have those with our youth. And, we teach how to respect and take care of feathers. Like I have 3 kids, like they've learned and have powwowed and have been around it since the day they were born. It's nothing for me to put my newborns in the car and go to a powwow 6 hours away. Like it was nothing. Like we powwowed with them nonstop and we still do today. So like our kids learn from being around and being part of the culture. Yes, there's teachings involved, but they learn by just watching. And you'd be surprised the mind, how it's a sponge, and you watch them do things that it's like, oh, I didn't teach you that, but you're doing it because you've watched me, you've watched your uncles, you've watched your grandparents, you've watched all these other people do these things around you, so you've picked it up yourself. So yes, that's a very big part of it, but it's just the keeping the culture in general alive, sharing our foods and teaching the youth how to make fry bread, how, where they come from, where their tribe has come from. So our community days are built on anything that anyone wants to know. If there's people that be like, well, I'm Indian. Okay, what tribe are you? Oh, I'm this tribe, but I don't know anything else. Well, if it's me sitting and researching and helping that individual learn and identify themselves, I did something for that community day. Like I helped and shared and spread a little knowledge. That's what it's about. It's about helping people that don't know who they are, but it's also a chance for us that have been around to share that and also just be with each other.
You mentioned language, and my background's in linguistics, so that immediately made my ears perk up. Are there people around the Pittsburgh area who are still fluent in their native languages?
I know of several that fluently can speak Lakota. Other than that, there are not many people in the Pittsburgh area that can speak any type of Native American language fluently.
Mm-hmm.
The downfall with being an urban Indian, which everyone in Pittsburgh, we're all urban Indians. We're away from our own people. Well, being away from your own people, you don't have the ability to learn that language. There is no one to teach you when you're in an urban setting. I'm not home on my reservations.
You muted yourself, Mike. You muted yourself.
We good?
Yep, now we're back.
Sorry. I'm not on the reservation where I can attend, language class, and there's things that are home. So like that's the part that's lost of being a urban Indian, which it sucks. Mm-hmm. It really does, but we make the best of it.
Mm-hmm. I've had a number of questions coming past on me on the screen. You mentioned feathers a couple of times, and people want to understand more about the importance of feathers and what role they play in your spirituality.
Okay, so different tribes use different things, but all of them, the highest, most respected feather is an eagle feather. Those are highly respected. You're gifted them when you might graduate high school, graduate college. You might get maybe for your 16th or 18th birthday, special birthdays, or, you do a good deed in the community, someone might gift you a feather. So like those are very important to us. But for our youth, we give them goose feathers. We give them turkey feathers. And we teach them to take care of those feathers the same way us adults are taking care of our eagle feathers. That way, when the time has come for them to hold and carry those sacred feathers, they know how to take care of them. They know what's expected. They know not to lay their feathers on the floor or on the ground. They know that when they're done, they need to go back in their case and be zipped up and put away. So we teach our kids, my kids all have eagle feathers. We all have feather boxes. They're young, but people have given them feathers the day they were born. So like I can't stop that. My younger kids do not carry their eagle feathers. They're not ready for that responsibility. So, they learn with their hawk feathers and other feathers, and as they mature and we see that they slowly become ready, they will earn and start receiving and being able to carry their eagle feathers.
So is it believed that the feathers have power of some kind?
So it's believed, so the eagle itself is a very strong bird, and it's, we pray to that. So carrying the feathers off of that eagle give us the strength and the endurance of that bird. It's the same as if you would as dancers, you know, we put different animal parts on our outfit, and they usually know, you know, oh, I'm gonna wear a bear claw necklace because I want the power of the bear when I'm dancing. You know, they have a connection with that animal, and they want that power and that, or you know, gracefulness. Bears aren't so graceful, but eagles, if you watch how they fly and they glide and they dive for fish, like they're very graceful animals. So they want that while they're dancing. So those different animal parts are incorporated into our outfits for that reason.
Okay, thank you. So another question's come across about, I mean, we've all seen that some tribes have developed strong interest in casinos and casino gambling. And we wondered a little bit, you know, how does the Native American community generally see that? Is that something that you're proud of, or just an economic necessity?
It's a necessity. Tribes that do that, what they do is they decide they're going to build this casino on their reservation, and their first employees that they're looking to employ are their own people. That's first before they, you know, obviously you're not going to find someone for every position, so you have to look elsewhere, but they start with their own people, and that money comes back to the tribe. Like that money helps take care of the tribe and the people of that tribe. So no, casinos are very good. You know, there's very few mismanaged Indian casinos in the United States. You know, those, for the most part, those casinos take care of its own people. So no, as Indian people, we think it's a very good thing. It's, you know, it helps us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are there other sectors of business or industry where American Indians have made a particular inroad? Do they have particular kinds of businesses, or are they just part of the general population?
That casinos are the biggest one. You know, that is, you think Native American, you think reservation, you think casino. Also on the reservations, you have your normal grocery stores, and basically you think of reservations as your hometown community. You know, it has its gas station, it has, you know, supermarket. So, but no, there is no other like stake that reservations or Native Americans have claimed as like a big money thing for their tribe other than the casino.
Okay, I'm going to move back for a second to a topic that we were talking about earlier. One person wanted to know, when there are Indian schools on reservations, are they subject to the same curricular requirements and so forth that non-reservation schools are, or do you have a specialized curriculum?
So it's both ways. They have to study their core subjects just like every other kid in the United States. But on top of that, they will and with like American history, they will include a lot of history of their own tribe and history of their own people, or you know, like how, you know, did the Trail of Tears, how did that affect our people? Like they'll base on that and they'll add to that. So like it's both. Like they're set to the standards like everyone else, but they add more to it. Or, you know, their electives might be different than, you know, instead of a home ec class, they might have a beadworking class, you know, because they want to teach their youth how to do beadwork or how to do feather work, or how, you know, instead of cheerleading, they might have a powwow dance elective where they're teaching their kids how to do powwow dancing. So, you know, it's changed a little. It's adapted to our needs, but as well, it still has to follow the core classes that you need to graduate any high school.
Okay, good. So moving ahead and beginning to think a little bit about looking forward, and what lies ahead for the next decade or something. If you had to isolate a couple of areas that you think are going to be particularly important for Native American peoples in the next few years, what would you look for? What would you look at?
So,
no, we lost you again, Mike. We lost the sound again. That sounds good.
Can you hear me now? We're good?
Yep, that's good.
Sorry, someone called me. I guess it muted me. But so our identity is the biggest thing we focus on today. When people think Native American, they think that, that darker skin complexion with the two braids and the dark hair, where that's not all of us. There's a lot of Native American that are fair skin and have short hair. Like my three kids are all blondish brown hair, very white looking kids. You wouldn't know that they're Indian kids by looking at them. And keeping our identity. Like my youngest, he's a boy. He deals with being called a girl because he has long hair and they don't understand. So it's very important that as the older generation now, we teach our kids, like, people can look different. Boys can have long hair, girls can have short hair. Native Americans no longer look like this in a textbook, but they can look like you, me, and her over there, because you might only be an eighth, but if you understand and believe that you're an eighth Native American and learn your history and everything else, then you're Native American. You might not be Native American. There's people out there that are no blood Native Americans, but respect it so much that they've learned and have been adopted by tribes and become Native American through adoption. So like that's a lot that we're currently dealing with. We're dealing with our identities. So, we tell people all the time, like, lose the stereotypes that Hollywood has done to us. Lose the stereotypes, of the Cleveland Indians and with the tomahawk chop and the song that they play. Like, none of that is us. And that will always be a fight. We took that fight on and won with Cleveland. They are no longer the Indians and they no longer have Chief Wahoo. Like, that was a fight that we won. The Washington Redskins, they've changed their logo. Those are battles that we are dealing with because Hollywood and the white man has put a stereotype on us. It's, if I wanted to dress up, no offense to anybody, but if I wanted to dress up as a Catholic priest for Halloween, people would look at me and be like, what the hell is he doing? Mm-hmm. But it's okay for Halloween stores to sell Native American costumes, and it's supposed to be okay. Mm-hmm. Well, why can you be our culture, but I can't be what you are? It's a culture. It's a way of life for us. So, like, it doesn't make sense. And people don't understand why, as Native Americans, we get mad and offended. Like, they sell a female Halloween costume that's a Native American squaw. Well, squaw in English language or today's language is a whore. So that's not right. That's like, oh, I'm going to make a nun costume that's a mini skirt and is a whore. Like, it's the same thing. People would be mad about it, but we're not supposed to get mad. We're supposed to just accept that. So, it's a fight every year, and we go to social media. That is almost a never ending battle. We will battle that forever, and it sucks. But, we teach our youth that, it's not right. Just try to ignore it. We know it makes you mad and it hurts, but, just try to ignore that and just stick with your own teachings.
I have to ask a follow-up question. You were talking earlier about how different Native Americans may look from any particular model. And I got an interesting question here from Eric, who asked, what can an African American do to reclaim his or her Native American heritage?
So if you are African American, but you have Native American history to you, our Indian Center would welcome you with open arms. If you know what tribe you are, if you want help learning about your tribe, you want help learning about the culture in general and powwow dancing and feathers and putting regalia or outfits together or singing around a drum, as an Indian Center, that is what we do for our community days. You don't have to be full-blooded. You don't have to be 50%. If you say you're Native American, it is not my position to question you. You are Native American. If you say you are, you are. And that's how I look at it in my eyes. And that's how our community looks at it. there's no one in our community that's going to judge your percentage, because that's a thing that we don't want to deal with and we fight about, percentage. Why does it my percentage matters? If I'm Indian, I'm Indian. It don't matter. It shouldn't matter. So if you're looking to reproclaim your Native American roots and history, um, Donna has my email address, and she's more than welcome to share my email address, and we can be in touch, and I can hook you up and get you dates for our upcoming community days. And you're more than welcome to come, sit, learn, do nothing else but talk. If all you want to come talk and listen, that is okay.
Great, wonderful. So I want to turn now towards the topic that we try to shape these forums around, and that is what can we do? How can we be helpful? What is a good supporting? What is a good ally role to the Native American community? And I guess I want to start off by clarifying a little bit. What good relations or bad relations do you have with government, either local or state or federal? How well represented is the Native American community and its interests in formal government?
So we have a working relation with the city of Pittsburgh. They've we fought and met with them about Columbus Day and changing that. We've got proclamations from the state, but the big thing that we don't have from any type of government is funding. So there's two parts to our Indian Center. Like I said, we have early Head Start, and that's funded with no problem because it's its own program. But there is not a lot of funding that we can get as an Indian Center by itself. So, putting on that powwow that we put on, when the Indian Center itself needs a new roof, like that's fundraising and money that we have to come up with. The programs that share the building pay part of that because they use the building as well. But like the Indian Center side of it also uses that building and has to pay for that. So like we have a lot of funding issues, and we write grants and some we get, some we don't. That's a struggle. The biggest thing that the community can do, not just the Indian community, the community, they can help. So we want to upgrade our powwow grounds. It's going to cost money, but maybe it won't cost so much money if we have a group of people that are willing to help and do the manual labor. So now we don't have to pay somebody to come do it. It's those types of things that we can use and benefit from as an Indian Center. Money is always great and would never be turned away, but there are people that don't have that, and that's okay. There's other ways to help and support, and it might just be your labor, or maybe you're not in condition. You coming and maybe bringing a cooler with water and have cold water on a hot day that we're working out there would be appreciative. Little things like that. Every little thing happens, even if it's right before our powwow, the Friday before we're moving firewood or we're putting up tents. Volunteers. It's all about the volunteer basis. Our community does a lot, but there's always room for more. The younger part of our community is so the middle age part of the community is what's missing. The older generation is still there, but they're older where they can point fingers and tell us what needs done, but they might not be able to do the work. Then the middle generation is small, but then we have this younger generation below us that is quite large, but they're too young to do anything yet. So we're in that awkward stage of having people to do that type of work. So, but we make it happen. If it requires me to spend a week at the Indian Center prior to the powwow to make sure everything happens, I do it. That I grew up in that Indian Center and powwowing at that powwow, and now I took it over in 2010, and it's my pride and joy. Like something very large would have to happen for me not to want to do that or not be part of that powwow. So it's, it's something that I take a lot of pride in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the questions, and this is not about the power, I think this is about the community days. Somebody asked, are non-Native Americans welcome for community days?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. You want to come, you want to learn, you want to pick our minds so that way you have better knowledge. There's nothing wrong with that. We are okay with that. We're very welcoming group of people. We've all done this long enough that there's not many things people can say or questions that can be asked that is offensive. I prefer you to ask that what you might think is offensive question and learn from it than not ask and keep that that part that might offend us to yourself. No, I would prefer to teach you the right way than not have that opportunity to teach at all.
That's nice. That's great. Someone asked a question just now that I've never heard this term before. The questioner asks, what do you think, Mike, about the current practice of land acknowledgement?
So
Could you explain the word first? Because most people, I don't think, will know what it means.
You're talking about like land acknowledgements?
Yeah.
So a lot of schools do them. I'm not very big or knowledgeable about them. We have a member of our community. His name is Miguel Segay. He deals with all of our land acknowledgement. We actually get a lot of requests from different colleges that want to do them. So that's something I've never got into. So I don't want to misspeak on that. But he handles all of them. And we get requests usually a couple times a year from different colleges from Western Pennsylvania, maybe even a little further out, going to the east of the state. And yeah. So I see them all the time, but I don't get into how they work or what they actually do.
Okay. So if if the questioner were to contact you, you would be able to put him in touch with the right person?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
I have
Right.
Yep. If they get a hold of me, I can pass them on to Miguel. I have his email address. I can give that out to them, and they can discuss the land acknowledgements with him.
Okay, and let me say generally that if anybody wants to ask questions of Mike or find out more, then the best thing to do probably is to send an email to the church, to our church, to St. Brendan's, and then we will pass that on. Wait a minute, I got Donna. I think Donna is going to give us the email address in a second. I think. Hold on for that. So in the meanwhile. Someone asked, what is your feeling about the Bureau of Indian Affairs? Are they your allies? Are they or are they a pain in the rear end like a lot of bureaucracies? What's the relation?
Both. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, they do a lot. They were part of, making that Smithsonian in DC happen. They've done good, but they're also the same people that want to split our tribes, and you have your state and federal tribes. They are part of that. So, as a government entity, they are part of the problem, because they're not fighting the same way we're fighting, for tribal rights. So, as all parts of the government, they do good, but there's also room for improvement.
Very tactful, Mike. That's great.
Yes. See?
Mike, since I now know what your email address is, this is a closed circuit. I mean, it's just the people on the call. May I share that with the people, or would you rather that I not do that?
No, you can share my email. No problem. Okay.
So for people who want it, it is mstims, that's MSIMMS 606 @gmail.com. So that would be where you would find Mike if you wanted to ask him for some of these connections to different things. Okay, so let's see, what else have I got on my list? Yes, if you were to sum up what you would like members of our communities and the wider community to know and to do in the next few years, you've mentioned volunteering, you've mentioned being supportive, you've mentioned avoiding stereotypes and just learning more about Native Americans. Are there other things that you think we need to know in order to be helpful and supportive?
No, I truly think the biggest thing is knowing and not stereotyping, asking those questions when you don't know. The resources are out there, especially, this day and age with Facebook. Like, there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of drama on Facebook, yes, but there's a lot of good people on Facebook that have a lot of knowledgeable information that they have to share. Especially if you go find some of those Native American groups on Facebook, there's a lot of information shared. So being knowledgeable, that way you can teach your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids. You can teach them the right and the wrong. Just because they learn it in school in their history book, there might be another side of that story. And if you're knowledgeable just from talking and learning, you can give them that other side. And that helps. That teaches them so they understand. Understanding that not all Indians have long brown hair, black hair with 2 braids. Breaking that stereotype helps our youth, because at one point in time, Native Americans married Native Americans. They stayed within their tribe, but that's not the case today. Every, races are mixed. So as you mix the race, the kids that are Indian kids no longer look like Indian kids because they're mixed blood with God knows what else. So, kids have to understand that. And, it's very important to break the stereotypes of the past so they don't carry on to our future generation. It's just like, the Confederate flag and breaking that. Like, it's not just Native Americans that deal with this. Every race deals with some type of stereotype that they're trying to break. And, just because we're an Indian center, yeah, we're focused on Indian people, but if we can help other people, we want to help them. We were part of the Black Lives Matter movement. We did protests with them. That wasn't our protest. That wasn't our fight. But it's the right thing to do. You support each other as humans. If it's a peaceful and proper protest, it's absolutely a reason to get behind. Bombings and burning stuff to the ground and destroying and looting, that's not a proper protest. That's not doing anything. But protesting and getting your word across, that's why we did the longest walk the second time. We walked to the government's door and knocked on the door. In 2009, there was, they did a lot of fracking. And there was a protest in Washington, D.C., the mountaintop removal protest. We started at the far end of the mall and we marched to the doors of the White House. And our Native American drum group, we led that march. We did that, because you're hurting our land. It was a whole other group that was protesting it, but it was a cause that we could relate to and get behind and was part of that protest. We're all about protesting and pushing to make changes when it's done the right way.
I think one of the things that many people have learned about the Native American peoples, because of the climate change and ecology movements, is that your peoples have for a very long time sort of taken the long view and regarded our responsibility as being to the 7th generation. That's become a real buzzword for many people.
Correct.
Yeah, I got a little promotional announcement here. Is his name Miguel Sagui?
Yes.
He is speaking at the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills this Sunday about land acknowledgement. So,
there you go.
yeah, and that's just around the corner from us. So rather than contacting Mike, you can actually go listen to Miguel himself, and he can explain it all. I don't have a time, but it's just at our church this Sunday. So maybe we'll get another, I think I may get another message in a second that will tell me when that is. Yes, I'm going to get one of it. 10:30 a.m. 10:30 a.m. on Sunday, if you want to listen to Miguel Sergey and learn about land acknowledgement.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah,
sometimes a group like this has answers of its own, so that's fabulous.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, he's a very, he's a very good guy. Like he's watched me grow up. Like I grew up with his son, so he's very knowledgeable, and that's something spiritual wise. That's something he does, and then the land acknowledgements. He's very knowledgeable. So like, I have no reason to get involved or step on toes. Like when you're good at it, I just let you go. Like, the Indian Center has a lot of working parts. I'm involved in a lot, but there's things that I don't understand that I just step back from. And when my time comes, if I need to understand it, I will do the research and I will get knowledge from other people, and I will understand those things so I can fill those shoes one day if I need to. But for the time being, I have enough other stuff on my plate, so I put it on the back burner.
I'm getting a flood of information. It's interesting. Okay, so this is the UUNCH, that's the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills service, is also available on YouTube live at 10:30. So if you can't get to the church, you can learn from Miguel on YouTube. The marvels of technology. There you are.
Right? That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so there's only one other topic that I thought we maybe hadn't covered. The issue of reparations is one that is very sensitive in many ways. It's one that the Black community, the African-American community has brought up a number of times. Is this an issue that American Indians have any concern about?
Not as a whole, no. Every once in a while it comes up, but like it's, as a community as a whole, it is not an issue. But we support and get behind other race and people that are dealing with it. Because it could happen to us. Just because it's not right now, it could. Mm-hmm. And we would want everyone else's support as well. So we help and we support other people through it, and it's the right thing to do this day and age.
Okay, so before we end the questions, Mike, I've given a plug for the Unitarians. You should have a right to plug the powwow. When is this year's powwow going to be?
This year's powwow will be September 25th and 26th, which is the last full weekend of September of 2022, from noon to 7 on Saturday and Sunday right now. Look, if you follow our Facebook page, all of our community days information we post that there. The powwow will be posted there, and anytime we're going to set up volunteer opportunities to work on the powwow grounds, it will also be posted on our Facebook page.
Very good. The 25th and the 26th, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, mark your calendars, everyone. Okay, so before we close, I want to thank people. Most of all, I want to thank Mike. You've been very responsive, very knowledgeable, just the perfect person to have for this forum. I want to thank the Justice Ministry here at St. Brendan's, which is led by Ginny Volponi and Donna Aiello. I also want to remember in particular this evening, Karen Dennis, who's been closely involved with these forums from the beginning and presided as the moderator of one of our previous forums. Karen has been hospitalized with COVID for a long time, and we send her our prayers. There's a community of churches that work together to present these forums. St. Brendan's, obviously, the Unitarian Universalists, and Trinity Lutheran Church. Two people have provided technical assistance to us. Julie Smith helped set things up, and Sean Sweeney has been overseeing the live streaming here. and all of you who've joined this webinar. Thank you all so much for joining and for sending in good questions. I hope I got to most of them. I may have missed one or two here or there. But above all, I hope we whetted your appetite to follow up and learn more about Native American affairs and the life of Native American peoples here in the Pittsburgh area. Our next forum has already been scheduled. That will be on Thursday, February the 17th at 7 p.m., again via Zoom. And the topic will be racism and mass incarceration. The speaker for that event is David Garlock, a formerly incarcerated individual and a member of the Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration. If you go to our webpage at St. Brendan's, you'll find information about that and other planned forums. And if you want to rehear or pass along this particular forum, there will be a recording available at probably beginning on Sunday of this weekend. Again, Mike, thank you so much. You've been fabulous. And we look forward to staying in touch and helping with you and the Indian Center in the future.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you all for all the questions. Hopefully you gained something out of this.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.